I am very happy to have you here at the European Parliament to discuss a topic that is very important for me personally and has been for over 20 years. Back when we first started to use smartphones and mobile phones in general, and I was a deputy at the National Assembly, and we organized the first symposium asking ourselves, are mobile phones dangerous? Because we were receiving information from the United States, from the UK, that showed that electromagnetic waves were possibly harmful. And back then, we already had experts that had conflicts with phone operators and therefore wouldn't give clear information on the sanitary consequences of the frequencies caused by 5G. We called the Institute Rivasi and then Italian and Belgian experts who declared that on wavelengths for whom we know the frequency, 700 megahertz, 3.6 gigahertz, studies have been conducted and proved that these frequencies have consequences on safety. My purpose is simple. When it comes to 5G, even if we develop technology, we lack a global vision when it comes to these millimetric wavelengths that we should apply, and we will hear a number of cautionary tales.
At this slide, we have some focus at the health issue. The health issue, by the way, is not only about humans, but also about nature. And we see that there are numerous research projects that show relations with EHS, with cancer, with cell stress, with free radicals, genetic damage, fertility, learning and memory problems, neurological damage. And it is recognized by the consensus initiative from doctors in the United Kingdom. That's also supported by doctors' organizations outside the United Kingdom. Altogether supported by about 35,000 medical personnel. But it's not only about ENFs. When we look at the research being done by Professor Manfred Spitzer, we see problems with digitalization more in general. Children, specifically children who have long screen time, they have a one-sided development of their brain, and that's not a very small thing. And as a result of this one-sided development of their brain, they may encounter very early dementia. Professor Torchet Noord and Mrs. Super, the German research, and you see that children who has a long screen time every day write much less well than those who have only limited screen time. And also the memory of those children are much less than those who have limited screen time. So these are very serious consequences of the digitalization, and we really have to do something about this. So the objectives of the ESC: protection of humans, flora and fauna. It's not only humans for the health effects of EMFs. We want education and promotion of general understanding of the effects of EMFs and digital communication. We want to support and encourage scientific research because we think research indeed is very necessary. For life processes, not only molecules are needed, but a proper electromagnetic fields are as essential as the molecules. And we want to pursue better regulation that also take into account these relations. So for organizations who are conscious of the effects of EMF, we ask them to come and join us and combine our forces.
In the month of July 2016 in France, there was a report for INSES, our health association institution, that showed that 9 out of 10 smartphones on the market, put on the market in 2015, are beyond the legal limit. And I asked to access this report, and at that moment I realized that it was very hard to access the reports. And to be short, today, thanks to a number of actions that were led since 2016, we have a database inside of which France has published more or less 1,000 reports. And so monitoring actions are being led, and this is how PhoneGate started, and I will be brief in my explanation. We have created on the international scene, we have created SAR, in French DAS, the specific absorption rate that is supposed to measure the heating properties of the wavelengths to which we are exposed, and by measuring the thermal aspect, the thermic aspect, we can know whether we are protected or not. But you will understand that this specific absorption rate is not a good indicator, that does not protect human health, that was created in order to protect connectivity rather than human health. Nowadays, in Europe, we measure out of 10 grams of human tissue, the equivalent of 10 grams, because we do not measure on a physical person, but on a dummy. And in the US, there is a rule created by the FCC, Federal Communication Commission, and in the US, this measurement is not made out of 10 grams of human flesh, but out of 1 gram. So you might wonder, well, what's the difference between 10 grams and 1 gram? It means that a European is 3 times less protected than an American. I gave you a few examples, a few tangible examples, because SAR is a measure. We shouldn't go over 4 watts per kilo. And so for an iPhone 8, for example, for an iPhone 8, here you have the figures.
It's one of the points we want to present also at European level, to European Commission, to really support our question and ask why we currently use this methodology in Europe based on 10 grams instead of 1 gram in the US. Proving that when we use the iPhone 7 and we put it at 2 to 6 millimeters, we switch from 2 watt per kilo to 8 watt per kilo. So in a few millimeters difference, we have this increase of 4 times the level of the radiation. So that's why an action has been launched against Apple and Samsung. So now the fight in court is going on in the US. They attacked the FCC, and as you see here, in August 2021, they actually had this FCC, it was judged and faced justice because of this. And they are lobbying and pushing the Canadian government to publish the result of the tests. So in September 2022, a few months ago, actually we obtained the very first collective action launched against Apple and Samsung in Canada. And this is a campaign we launched at European level with a shared objective with our friends of Europeans for Safe Connections. We are trying to reach out all regulators, telecommunication regulators. So we sent thousands of letters in different countries, about 15 countries, and we we launched this year in 2023 a real mobilization at European level to check, to verify all the mobile phones we have on the market, on the European market, and then to conclude, those are the objectives I want to present to you. So basically to carry out regular controls in several countries in Europe, make sure that each European country has open data about those texts, and then publish in the RAPEX also the fines, eventual fines against the producers, and withdraw or update all the mobile phones that do not respect this SAR. On our website you can follow all the news and updates about our actions, and so if you're interested in this, you can check everything again news from our website. Thank you.
EHS is a very serious condition. It is induced by fields from electricity and wireless radiation. And then we also speak of other sources like radar, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. EHS really is a somatic condition. Millions of people all over the world have arrived independently at the conclusion that wireless radiation and electricity are the causes of their health condition. When they are out in the fields, their symptoms fade away over and over again. What are the most common symptoms that apply to EHS? I quote the list given by medical doctor Monica Kraut. Severe fatigue and concentration problems, insomnia, tinnitus, dizziness, headache, migraine, hypertension, depression, itching skin, burnt skin, attention disorder, heart rate issues, joint and muscle pain, but also epileptic seizures, blood clotting disorders, leading from mild nosebleeds to severe internal bleeds and even strokes.
I began to have symptoms from being around wireless telecommunication. I began to have, heart palpitations. So just if someone was next to me and they received a phone call or just walked next to me, sometimes I could have changes in my circadian rhythm and I couldn't sleep at night then. And it would take like 2 or 3 days to recover from just 5 seconds of exposure. And then later I began to have memory difficulties and being exhausted, fatigue from just being in vicinity of someone having mobile phones or Wi-Fi. Nowadays, it affects everything in my life.
Okay.
I don't go to work. I don't go shopping. The only place I go is here at home or in the forest.
It started in 2001 when I was 31 years old, and I couldn't sleep. Suddenly it came, my sleep went worse and worse, getting worse and worse during 2 weeks until I was completely sleepless and I didn't know why. My life it changed in the last 10 years a lot. I was a very social person. I like to be with other people. I like to go shopping, go in restaurants, go in the cinema, making holidays. I like to have guests at home. I like to go making sport in a gym. I can't do anything now. At the moment, I'm not at home.
Okay.
Because at home in Osnabrück, I can't stay. I have still good friends and they go walking with me in the nature. EHS does exist. The doctors need to know about this disease and they have to learn about it at university. Please protect the children. I think it's necessary that they learn to handle with computers in school. But why does it have to be with Wi-Fi everywhere? I don't think it's good.
The problem started about 15 years with me, and especially in computer screens, I had a problem working behind a computer screen. I had flushes in my face. I had irritable stomach, cramps in my muscles, and I had brain fog and problems with word finding. So with a computer, I had a problem, but it also moved to different apparatus like mobile phone, and sometimes also with lamps. Certain lamps like GL bulbs were very annoying. And I had to stop my work being a pharmacist after 25 years. So no deck telephones anymore, no Wi-Fi. The electricity cables were isolated, so they didn't have any magnetic or electric fields, etc. For me, it's very important that there is a very fundamental research before the whole 5G network has been rolled out. So I'm a case, and there are otherwise different cases too, and I think there should be more clinical studies to case reports from different people.
My EHS symptoms are loss of memory, lack of concentration, muscle weakness, pain in my joints, fatigue, also headaches, strange headaches, actually. Something that bothers my hearing, loss of hearing also. I have permanent hearing loss at one side, but when I'm out of the EMS, I don't experience that so much. My house is shielded, and I try to avoid it as much as I can. In this world, it's very difficult to avoid it at this moment. I stay at home because my both children have EHS also, and they cannot go to school. They cannot participate. They have to stay inside. I really think that this is something that can hit everybody. That it's regardless of age, of profession, of the state of health, really. You can be in very good health maybe and just decay in a short time. I really don't. I wouldn't desire this for my worst enemy, but I think that you and your relatives can also be hit by this. I really hope that you see that we're not a couple of strange people who just got this at one moment, but that everybody can experience this, and it's a very harmful experience. And I really hope you would save yourself from this problem. I just wish for a world where my children can go outside, play with friends, make new friends, do their jobs, and not be such a patient, such a worry, because it's not their problem.
Society has to become accessible again to the EHS people.
Electrohypersensitivity is a very difficult condition to have. When people suffer from it, it takes usually 1 to 2 years to understand that they're suffering from it. Then these people lose their jobs, and in some relationships, when you suffer from EHS and you live in town, you have to move out. You need to find a place where you can live. And then we have many people that have to move to the suburbs or to the countryside, and we are confronted with people that move 1, 2, 3 times because electromagnetic fields are becoming wider and wider, and then they move, and then the electromagnetic fields reach them once again, and then they have to move again. So that has launched a European Citizen Initiative, an ECI, Stop 5G. The title is Staying Connected but Protected, And I think that we wanted to talk about this ECI because we are now at the end of February, and it is urgent that people can express themselves and vote so that we can push in the right direction.
Therefore, we have been forced to acknowledge the fact that if there is to be a change in the laws in the area of wireless radiation, we must come together on a European level in order to have the power to influence the EU laws and in this way also our national laws. Next slide, please. Authorities and politicians have really failed to protect all living beings by closing their eyes for this issue. The most crucial issue in this area is the lack of health and environmental assessment, not only on the 5G rollout, but all the wireless technologies, 2G, 3G, 4G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and so on. All human beings, especially our kids, are vulnerable. Animals, plants, and nature are suffering too. As you can see with this tree in the picture, which is irradiated by the mast in the background. Beside the radiation issue, there are all kinds of very serious environmental impacts. I will just mention shortly, because I don't have that much time, but you can read more on our webpage. We have the mining, destruction of natural habitats, we have the conflict minerals, we have the energy consumption that is rising, and we have electronic waste rising also, and all kinds of pollution. It has not been easy to work with such a controversial topic. We know in large segments of the population, 5G is a positive part of their lives. Politicians are supportive through policies and financial funding. Industry with large amount of investments, and media which hardly ever mention the dark side of the wireless technology. It is as if large parts of the society are wearing blinders, do not want to see, do not want to hear, and do not want to talk about the dark side of the digital rollout, which is on speed. It has also been quite difficult to spread the word about 5G on our ECI because of censorship that we have experienced. We have been excluded from Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and specific fundraising platforms. Our freedom of speech has been suppressed. Our ads and press releases have not been accepted by mainstream media, and we have not been able freely to explain our ECI to the European people. We have managed to connect a group of Danish and Swedish competent people who have written a scientific report called Critique of Sheer Opinion Report on Health Risks from Radio Frequency Radiation, which criticizes the Sheer Opinion Report, the EU Sheer Opinion Report that came out in 2022. And I'll just mention 3 important points from the conclusions of this critical report. The EU Sheer Opinion Report has predetermined outcome favoring industry interest by the selection of pro-industry experts. The Sheer Opinion Report recommends adoption of ICNIRP 2020 dangerous limits that put entire EU population at serious risks. And the Sheer Opinion Report excludes the majority of field experts who agree the public must be better protected. I have 3 grandchildren. On the picture is my granddaughter, Luna, watching a butterfly in amazement. I'm here today to make a better future for all of my grandchildren and for the generations to come, so they also can experience the wonders of nature. Therefore, we ask the EU to apply our 23 proposals to protect all living beings, where we have 10 proposals, to protect our environment, where we have 8 proposals, and to protect our privacy, security, and freedom, where we have 5 proposals. We have supplied legal and scientific arguments for all 23 proposals and also exact suggestions how the EU can improve their programs, their directives, their plans and their policies for the better. As a final statement, I would like to send these 3 messages. The EU has failed to protect its citizens and nature against the dark side of digital rollout. The Stop 5G ECI has succeeded in many ways, and please apply the 23 proposals from the Stop 5G ECI in the EU law. And I will quote from a recent study. The European Union prioritizes economics over health in the rollout of radio frequency technologies.
And it is really a tragedy that most of the regulatory bodies and scientists ignore everything but the thermal effect. How much will a piece of metal or a piece of skin increase in temperature after some limit of exposure? But what about biological effects? What about long-term effects? So Mr. Johansson made a statement on that event that the cumulative effect, not in 5 minutes, but over 20, 30 years, exposure to this radiation could have dire consequences. So this is something that is being completely ignored by most regulatory bodies. And he's not the only one. There are hundreds of scientists who even made some petitions to emphasize such dangers, but so far they are being ignored. Wherever I could, I mentioned this line, I mentioned this argument.
And I give the floor to Mr. Hoes. I was invited to share with you some comments on the resolution that I submitted to the Council of Europe in Strasbourg during the Parliamentary Assembly in 2011. I cannot, of course, make a summary of it because we don't have enough time, but I would like to highlight what it's written there. Actually, I can confirm that no positive change has been made for the health of people, for nature, for animals, for domestic animals, or for bees, for all those who are exposed and more exposed. In papers like Psycho or Physiology in 2021, and this study clearly shows 2 things. So analysis on people have been carried out, people exposed and non-exposed, and those analyses, those studies prove some changes in the brain activity of those people. And the brain scan actually showed a change in the activity after 30 minutes exposure. I can show you this picture. This is before the 5G implementation. So it was an iPhone 12. This is the test on people after 30 minutes exposure. You can see here the difference. This means that there are some changes at the physiological level of the brain. An increase of some biomarkers that may cause inflammation. And we saw that interleukin A beta, that plays a very important role in inflammation, increased massively, and we also saw an increase of another cytokine, purely cross factor alpha. And during those tests, those levels have been measured, and we saw this huge change. This means that the interleukin beta has been activated at brain level, so causing some endocrine stress. This, of course, causes a lot of problems in the brain, like also depression and others. And we also think this might play a role in the Alzheimer or can trigger Alzheimer issues. It's important that European institutions apply the precautionary principle that is enshrined in the EU treaties, and this has not been done at all. I was really pro-European, I've been always pro-European. I can be very clear and straightforward. For me, the current Europe, its the direction is the European Commission and the member states. It's just an institution taking into account the financial economic interests, and the rest is just talking, and problems are never solved because there is a problem between the DG Health and Committee of Experts, but those experts are not neutral. Basically, are people who have interests that sit there in those commissions. Excellent researchers and doctors also applied to be part of this commission, but their applications were refused because they used to ask and question a lot of principles and ideas. The reason why I'm really disappointed in this Europe.
All this has been done because we received many requests from our countries, being from Stop 5G Association, but also from trade union organization, and many of them were related with quality of life. We have no enough proof in order to say that it's a real danger. But the citizens continue to suffer, they have their concerns, and we have to go forward with the debate. The main question, the cornerstone of the discussion has arrived to this electromagnetic hypersensibility. We have this discussion in Germany because, in our opinion, we said that EH has its disease, this illness. We said it's an illness, and that started a controversy around the terms. In our opinion, was a member from Spain, from Consumer Protection. They said that we have decision in the court, and this decision in the court has to be recognized somehow, and they should reflect it in a legal text. From the discussions that we have in the STOA here, we had in the STOA, and what has been said from the Council of Europe, resulted that we have a problem. It's an illness, a disorder, a disease, wherever it is, somebody should discuss this interdisciplinary environment, and maybe this is the start for the right beginning in this regard to improve our standards and to ensure somehow a level of protection what is requested by the citizens which are presented this in the room.
It's what is now in terms of research programs, so it's not at that stage, as some colleagues here said, that we are already looking at the deployment of 6G. So we are here in a global context where all leading regions or all researchers basically in that field are now starting to do research on 6G. And yes, so why now start work on 6G? We have launched this partnership called Smart Networks and Services. So it's not only mobile, it's also fixed networks. Everything is covered. You can have these different dimensions. Of course, Mr. Haas just said we all see everything economic. I don't neglect that it's an important aspect. We see here the applications. The first on the top left, of course, looking what economic activity we could enable with these kind of infrastructures. That certainly plays a role. We also have the important point of industrial positioning. So we also maybe to say something positive that you also might consider is that we, if we do it, we talked about the ethical AI, artificial intelligence approach, that we also, if we leave it to the Chinese or maybe the Americans. Maybe, and we can also bring him in here. So it's important to participate, but in any case, if we would let it go, we would then be only the customers of this developed by others. And we also would lose the industries and lose the mastering of these technologies and of this ecosystem. So just some examples of these categories. So we have, okay, COVID was mentioned, teams at home, we know that from our kids and during the pandemic. Telepresence, I don't think that we will still see ourselves looking at these Teams screens. So we hopefully by 2030 have something a bit more authentic and more presence, that we are also digitally can have maybe body language, which we lose completely nowadays when we look at these Teams calls. So that's certainly one area where we can imagine how we could experience that in 2030 or beyond. Then industrial production is important, like having safe robots that are connected and can be synchronized, and then also more and more be so reliable that they can even work with humans. So that's called cooperative robots, like cobots. That's the next step on industrial connectivity. And you see other examples here, like massive twinning, where you can also have services based on information that we can collect on the environment, that we can then also build a twin of the Earth, basically, and where it's useful, and have also then a very important environmental applications that are very positive. You know that, okay, 2030, we're thinking that there will be first services based on 6G that we can imagine. So now it's about building the technologies and standardizing them in the next few years.
Please promise that you will never again launch a technology without an impact assessment. You're taking away ICNIRP. We do not want to hear about ICNIRP anymore. This is scandalous. And I said that to the Commission, do whatever you want, take them away. With your waves, I don't know how you can send them away. Send them some waves, but send them away. Are you ready to collaborate so that firstly we can guarantee that member states have control organization, that monitoring is being applied on every connected object and tool, and it would be worthwhile that the Commission would inform users and consumers. So why is it that indoors we are not developing a technology, whether it is through fiber, whether Wi-Fi, but not Wi-Fi? Couldn't we introduce and launch a citizen debate to know if citizens agree or disagree with this type of progress? Is it a progress that brings about an added value to our well-being, or is it not?